What is up, guys? This is the Zeus Tuber. Today I'm here with my review for the first half of Season 6. Now, I will be doing reviews for Season 5 as a whole, Season 4, 3, 2, and 1 as a whole. Compare the season to season type of thing. But for now, let's just start the first half of Season 6 and where I think it ranks with the rest of the seasons. Now, as you guys know, I thoroughly enjoyed most of Season 6. So far, I've enjoyed all of it. Obviously, some episodes are better than others. And we'll get into that a little bit later in this review. But I do want to just point out that I think that this first half so far does have some of the strongest writing we've seen in a while. And I know people have their mixed opinions about that. And I'm going to just give my honest opinions about the episodes. I'm going to try to be as unbiased as possible. I think the first 4 episodes of the season were absolutely phenomenal. I know some of you did not like the Morgan episode because it was either too slow, or they didn't like that it was there and it made us wait for the whole Glenn resolution. But that's not really the making us wait for the Glenn thing is not really, at least in my opinion, a valid reason to not like an episode. It's just you just gotta have patience. It's all patience and impatience, but it doesn't have anything to do with the episode being good or not. The writing, in my opinion, I know some of you will disagree, and that's fine. You can tell me that in the comments section. I don't want to argue with you, just giving my thoughts. That the Morgan episode 4, Here's Not Here, I thought, yes, it was slow, but it was very, very well written and acted on Gimple's part, as well as Lenny James, who plays Morgan, and John Carroll Lynch, who had the guest role as Eastman. Both of those two together were phenomenal. There was a lot of great scenes of them interacting, obviously, because they're the only 2 characters in that episode. There's the wolf is at the end there, but I'm not really going to count him. I discussed this in my review for that episode, that listening to Eastman tell his stories and just talk about things that have happened in his past with the guy who killed his family, and then just his whole struggle, his path to finding Aikido and the staff movements and all that. I related that a lot to listening to Christoph Waltz in Django Unchained. When Christoph Waltz is telling Django or Jamie Foxx the story about I think it was the girl on the top of the mountain or something like that. I forget, but he tells him a story when they're together, and I think, as an actor, Christoph Waltz is just really, it's great. It's fun to listen to him because he's got that voice that just, you lock in. He tells some very compelling things throughout that movie. And I thought that Eastman did the same things. John Carroll Lynch did a great job of being a storyteller in that episode. And the story within the episode was great too, because it tied a lot of things together from when we saw Morgan in episode 312 titled Clear to where we saw him in season 5. So that episode was great. The 3 before that, Thank You, JSS, and First Time Again, were also phenomenal, in my opinion. The premiere was not as good as the following 2, in my opinion. I think out of the first 3 episodes, because they all basically are, there's no major time jumps. They're all basically back to back to back in terms of their storytelling. Obviously, JSS is taking place at the same time as, you guys know what I mean. Out of those 3, I think it goes JSS is the best, then it's Thank You, and then it goes First Time Again, which is the premiere. So I think for those 3, JSS was the best one, but the first 4 are phenomenal. Episode 5, in my opinion, although very slow, not a lot happened in it. I will admit, not a lot happened. It was, you can write that off as filler. You can call it filler if you want, but there was some great character development in that episode. Now, a lot of people are saying, "Hey, but we're in season 6. We don't need any more character development. We already know these characters." Well, you can never have enough character development, because you don't simply, as a human being, you don't simply just stop becoming developed. Your life experiences develop your character more and more. We all have different aspects to our life, different upbringings, and we don't hit age, I don't know, whatever. You don't hit when you reach 25, and all of a sudden you just stop developing, just socially, mentally, whatever, however you want to look at it. We still experience life after that, and that shapes your experience. Your character in your own story gets developed more and more. Same for the show. It's never going to stop. So you might as well get used to the character development. And if you want to watch a show that's merely just action, or more action heavy, and doesn't rely so much on those intimate character moments like between Maggie and Aaron in episode 5, and then Tara and Denise, then I would go watch a different show, maybe like a cheesy zombie movie from Romero, or I mean Romero makes some good movies, don't get me wrong, but a lot of them are the newer ones are pretty cheesy. Or go watch Z Nation or something like that. But like in this episode, we learned Maggie was pregnant. That was big. We got some story progression between Tara and Denise's character. We see where they're going with that. We have the progression of Deanna's storyline within that episode. We see that she's kind of still dealing with the loss of her husband, Reg, and the loss of her son, and then of course the attack in the previous couple episodes there from JSS from the wolves. She's coping with all these things, and the walkers at the wall. So there's a lot of things she's dealing with, and we see her dealing with that. By the end of the episode, she's more level-headed. She's clear. And then there's a great moment there at the end between her and Rick, where she's like just asking him, "Is all my hopes for this place, is it just pie in the sky?" And he says no. And there's moments like that you need in this show where the characters do interact with each other. Because if they're all just, "We gotta kill walkers," all right, man, and they go and kill walkers the whole time, just for example, then you're not going to get anywhere. And if there's not those intimate character moments, then you're not going to have those intimate dramatic deaths. Like when Daryl inevitably dies eventually. I don't know when. Could be season 6, could be season 7, 8, 9. Maybe he doesn't die. But if, let's just hypothetically say he dies, had he not had seasons upon seasons of character development between him and Carol, as well as him and Rick, all the relationships he's formed, all these different little moments, little callbacks to different episodes, then his death would not have been as dramatic. We only care about these characters because of those intimate character moments. I mean, it's not the same if you're basing your love on a character just on how badass they are. I mean, yeah, that is a contributing factor, but you need to have those moments in order to build a stronger bond with said character, whether it's Glenn, or it's Rick, or Carl, or Michonne, or Beth. Well, she's gone, but you get the point. I mean, obviously, a lot of people connected with Beth because there was a big uproar when she died, and I mean, I didn't hate her character, but I was never like her biggest fan. Like, I didn't really care that much, but her character impacted a lot of people because there was a lot of people who couldn't accept her death for a very long time, and that's fine. But it's obviously there was a connection there, and there wouldn't have been such a strong connection had there not been those slower dialogue, character development type scenes. And then if we move on to episode 6 from this season, which was the Daryl, Abraham, Sasha episode, that was good because then we got to see more of them. And a lot of people were complaining about that episode because we hadn't seen a lot of those 3 characters prior to that episode. We had to wait 6 weeks in to see a lot of them. All the Daryl fans are like, "Oh, we've only gotten a couple minutes of him scattered throughout episodes 1 and 3. And I don't personally. I mean, you got to look at it from the show's perspective here. They're only given a certain amount of time per week for to tell their story, to get things in, and sometimes it's a big cast, and sometimes some of the characters aren't going to make the cut for that season. They have a story in mind, and they need to show they have to show the characters that will best tell that story, and it was crucial to the story in Gimple's head and whoever else's head on the team there, the writing team, that they include these 3 characters later on in the season, because then that episode, as Gimple and Norman Reedus have said, will tie into things later on in the second half. So it's better if you think about it, because if they had that episode later on in the first half, then people are more likely to remember things from that episode in the second half of the season, as opposed to like maybe if it was the first episode, so to speak. You know what I'm trying to say? Like it would be fresh in people's minds. There's a lot of contributing factors that we miss as fans. Upon first viewing, when we go through and like, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Why would they do that? Well, chances are, and I mean, obviously this doesn't happen every time, but most of the time with the show, things will pay off down the road. We might have to wait a little bit, but that just goes back to the whole patience thing that I keep talking about. That as fans, we're not very patient. If something happens, like the whole Glenn thing, people were furious that we had to wait, 4 more weeks to find out if he was dead or alive. I mean, obviously some of us were dead set that he was alive and we knew it. Some of us didn't know. But for the people who just didn't know at all, they don't go on YouTube, they don't go on Facebook, and they don't see any spoilers. The wait was excruciating for them, and that it's supposed to be excruciating. That's what happens when you have a show that airs weekly. You're supposed to have that wait in between episodes, and not everything's going to be resolved quickly. The show has the right to do that. You might not like it, but that's part of every show makes viewers wait. Every show. I mean, it's obviously some shows make you wait longer or not wait as long, but every show does that. I feel like people try singling out the show, like, why are they making us wait? Like, every show like this, like every drama, every show that airs weekly that has like an ongoing story will make viewers wait at some point. It's just a part of television at this point, a part of storytelling, that you're not going to get things resolved quickly all the time. And a lot of people judge storylines before they actually take place. I know there was some hate for the Daryl Carroll and Abraham episode. People at first viewings, I saw some comments. People thought it was a filler episode just to throw those characters in, since we hadn't seen them that much. But everything in that episode will come back to play later on in the season in some way, and probably a big way, because we know that Norman, as well as AMC, confirmed that the guy who stole his crossbow was in fact Dwight. So we can expect Dwight to come back, as well as just the dialogue between the two. These intimate moments between Daryl, between Dwight, those things will be things that can be referenced later on in the season and will pay off for the viewer. Like, for example, in episode 3 this season, when Glenn radios Rick while Rick's running down the road, and he says, "Good luck, dumbass." It's a callback to season 1, obviously, when Rick was stuck in the tank. Little things like that will, like, we had to obviously wait until 6 seasons later to hear that line referenced again, but I think for most people that was satisfying to hear that. Like, even when Glenn referenced the fact that he was a pizza delivery boy in I believe it was the premiere episode to Heath, people were like, "Oh, Glenn's such a cutie," because we know that he referenced that in season 1, that he delivered pizzas. It's just those little moments that you won't get if you're not getting those slower scenes, because you're not going to get those while they're killing walkers. That's just my opinion. I loved all the episodes. I mean, obviously, you guys know, heard my reviews. Episode 7, was phenomenal. I thought it greatly set up the mid-season finale. As you guys know, I thought the mid-season finale was lackluster. It was disappointing. I don't think it was a bad episode. I'm not saying it was bad. I think as a mid-season finale, it was not what we expected. It wasn't a bad episode. We've come to expect, because as fans of any fan of any TV show, after a certain amount of time, in a sense, I'm not saying we are, but like in a sense, we become we feel kind of entitled to certain things about our show. We expect mid-season finales. A lot of action is going to happen. Those are things that we should be expecting, or maybe not should be expecting, but those are things we do, because if you look back, the season 3 mid-season finale, I mean, the governor lost his eye, Rick and company attack Woodbury. That was really fast-paced the entire time. We got to meet Tyrese for the first time on the show. It was a great episode, plus a great cliffhanger. Season 4, obviously, the death of Herschel, as well as just the governor attacking the prison and the tank, and just the characters all splitting up, uncertainty. Great episode, great action, great cliffhanger once again. Season 5 mid-season finale, a much slower paced mid-season finale, but there was the out of nowhere shocking death of Beth, as well as Rick running over or ramming Officer Lamson with his car, which was just badass, amongst other things. But it was a slower paced episode. And then this episode, I think, was a good balance, in my opinion, between Coda and a mid-season finale like. I'm going to say it was a good balance between Pretty Much Dead Already, which is the season 2 mid-season finale, and Coda, because it had the intimate character moments that we should learn to enjoy if you don't already, and it did have some great scenes of action. Now, the action was spread far and thin, but that's okay, because everything in that episode is setting things up for episode 9 and on. They set up, I mean, obviously, this is not confirmed or anything, but it would seem to me they are still setting up the fact that Carl probably will lose his eye at the hands of Ron, because although Carl did get the gun from Ron and all that and kind of diffuse the situation for now, Ron still looks like he's kind of out of it, because he was kind of standing there moping for the rest of the episode afterwards. So he's still mulling things over in his head. And then we got that shot right after they already all have their Walker Guts garb on, their ponchos, basically. We get that shot of Jessie checking how much ammo she has in her pistol, loading it, or putting the mag back in, and then putting it in her holster. And they have that shot specifically just on the gun for about 10 seconds, I'd say, maybe 7 or something. She puts it in. They didn't really have to show that. they didn't have to, but they chose to. I forget who directed the episode. Mike Lee Stratazimus, who is the director of cinematography, so he's the guy usually in charge of framing the shots. He chose to frame the shot of her, like up close, like this, putting with the gun is like right here, putting it in her holster. Why? Probably because that's them planting the seed, more or less, that's where Ron could get the next pistol from to try and shoot Carl. That's just how I'm looking at it. I could be completely reading into it, but let's face it, it's got to happen. Carl losing the eye is like an iconic moment from the comics. It's up there with like the governor attacking the prison, in my opinion. Like those are just things that need to happen at some point. So, I mean, we'll see. I mean, obviously, Rick losing his hand in the comics is a pretty iconic moment too, but that didn't happen. So, we'll see. But they also set up the whole scene from the comics where Rick has to cut off Jesse's hand because you guys know what happens with that, right? If you don't, then go look it up. I'll just explain to it. I've already shared spoilers from the comics in this already. Basically, little Sam starts freaking out, much like he started to do before the credits rolled there. And then walkers devour him. Jesse doesn't let go of him. She starts getting dragged to the walkers, but she's still holding on to Carl, so Carl's getting dragged in. And then Rick sees this and is like, nope. Well, yes, he doesn't say nope, but, and he cuts off her hand in a split-second decision, just so he can spare his son. And now in the show's case, he'd be sparing Judith and Carl, so that's killing two birds with one stone. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. I think the first half of season 6 was really great. It's definitely it's definitely better than the first half of season 4 in my opinion. I mean, the mid-season finale of season 4 just blows all the other ones out of the water in my personal opinion. But in terms of the first half of a season, I think this has been the strongest first half because each episode was strong in its own way. Obviously, people have their differing opinions. Some people don't like the slower pace, and I've already explained that in great detail throughout this review, which is more of a rant than anything now that I'm listening to actually thinking about what I'm saying. But I think this was a very strong first half, and I can't wait to see the second half because I just know things are going to be off of the rails, especially with because you got to think about it. Realistically, episode 9, we know, is just going to be insane. We know it's going to be insane because everyone has confirmed it. Gimple, the cast, and we know that they're gonna resolve the whole No Way Out thing. At least continue with the No Way Out thing in episode 9. If it gets resolved, then that we'll have to wait and see. It probably will though. 2 episodes should be enough. But you got to think, people are gonna die in 9. Big things are gonna happen there. We still have the wolf, running amok with Denise. We still have the tease of Negan happening. So we can expect a bunch of awesome stuff in 9. We have Negan looming in the background, the impending doom of Negan looming. The fates of Daryl, Abraham, and Sasha all up in the air at this point. Like I mentioned, the wolf. We have Jesus to expect sometime early in the season. We have a Rick and Daryl episode coming up. We have the Hilltop being introduced. I mean, it hasn't been confirmed yet, but I know they were building a set that looked just like the Hilltop, so Hilltop plus Jesus is going to be introduced. We know that for sure, so it'd be reasonable to assume that Jesus will introduce the Hilltop to them this season. And just we got Dwight out there, Daryl's crossbow. When will that come back? We'll have to wait and see, but it will. It will come back at some point. He'll come back, and that can't be good news for anybody. So, and Negan's gonna kill someone in the finale, and it's gonna be a big character, whether it's Morgan or Daryl or Glenn or Abraham. My bet is on one of those 4 dying in the finale. Either way you slice it, it's gonna be rough, but I am psyched, and I know you guys are too. I give the first half of season 6 a 4.5 out of 5, and I think Gimple's doing a fantastic job. Say about him what you will, but he definitely his plan might not be obvious to everyone right away, but I think given time, the writing becomes better in a sense because, like I mentioned, this is my final point. We tend to read into things too quick. We don't let the story. A lot of us. I mean, some of you guys do this perfectly fine, but not everyone lets the story arc or the storyline, fully develop before they judge it. Like, let the storyline play out before you judge it, because something might happen that you were like, oh, I don't agree with that, but then it comes into play later on in a way you weren't expecting, and then that is awesome in that way, and then that makes the thing you didn't agree with even better. You know, like it's like we have half of the storyline, and you're judging the first half. But then there's the second half where everything gets tied together. So you can't judge the storyline as a whole without getting both halves. You know, you can judge the first half, but the first half might actually make the second half even more awesome. You know, you never know. I think just let the storylines play out before you judge them. That's just me. Give the show a fair shot. And yeah, have yourselves a wonderful day, guys. I'll be back at you guys later, some more videos. And I love you. You guys are the best.
Welcome to Limber.